So we're talking about vibes today. And when I talk about vibes, most of you know that I'm very much into sensitivity, various levels of consciousness, picking up energy from other people. And my guest today basically flat out says why vibes matter. My guest today is Dr. Garrett Yount, and he is coming to us from Institute of Noetic Sciences. Let me tell you a little bit about Garrett. He is a scientist, a molecular biologist, at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, where his research focuses on mapping the mind gene interface. And he has conducted carefully controlled laboratory experiments with spiritual healers and biofield practitioners from around the world, including China, Brazil, Canada, US, Japan, and so forth and so on, including places like Sri Lanka. That's amazing. But I'm having him on the program today. He just published this book, Why Vibes Matter: Understand Your Energy and Learn How to Use It Wisely. And this is critical. It's important because a lot of us go through life just going, hey, that feels great. Or this person's fascinating. What do I feel so connected to them? Or even more importantly, why does this person turn me off? Why do I feel like I do around this person? So today, Garrett's going to talk a little bit about this book he has written, and also we're going to get some strategies on using vibes. So, hey, Garrett, welcome to Destiny. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, Cliff.
All right, let's get to the heart of this thing. Why a book on vibes? Were you doing some tests on a project, and the idea of unseen vibrations, unseen feelings came up, and you thought to yourself, I got to explore this a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing research on energy medicine modalities that I believe are related to this topic of vibes for many years, as you mentioned. But the word vibes, it means so many different things in the culture, and it's like really popular to talk about getting good vibes or feeling the vibes or being in the same frequency as somebody. So it can be confusing. So the book is kind of it's a very basic kind of a guide to understanding the different types of vibes. And then, yeah, as you say, some methods for beginners on how to either influence the vibes they're getting or the vibes they're putting out. So just kind of a little guidebook to that all. It's like
Yeah, it's
the
very cool. Talk a little bit about vibes. Now, I gave some examples of, when you meet somebody, you connect with them, but you don't know why, or you
yeah.
don't. I mean, I'm going to get into some heavy stuff here because I've been kind of following this for a while. We can get into past lives. We can get into, you don't get into past lives because perhaps that's a little too airy fairy, or you wanted to keep the focus on a specific lab result that you were experimenting with. I don't know. But
uh,
when we say that I get a good vibe from that person, what's happening? Is it hormonal? Is it unseen? I mean, you even bring up EMFs, which are fantastic to talk about. But
yeah.
give us a kind of an overview of what we are feeling, what the vibe is.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to talk about three different types of vibes because they could all be combined when you're having that feeling, or they could be one or the other. So I kind of divide it into three types: conscious vibes, subconscious vibes, and superconscious vibes. So the conscious vibes are the ones that your senses are picking up, and they're like expressions like smile or frown. I mean, this gives a vibe, you get a reaction from it. Can be that obvious, or even micro expressions, a little less obvious. Or, the theme you pick for your wedding, you want a rustic vibe. And you do that by putting things around, types of flowers that kind of elicit this response. So those are the conscious vibes, kind of the most obvious. Don't talk about them much in the book, because as you mentioned, kind of my research is more on the hidden side of things. So the next level down is the subconscious vibes. And those can be hormones, chemicals that we can't smell, as you mentioned, the electromagnetic fields. So they're physical vibrations. They're, even at the molecular level, that have an impact on our body. Our body picks them up. Our conscious mind isn't aware of them, But once our body detects them and reacts to them, it bubbles up into our conscious mind as a vibe. So that's kind of more of this unseen vibe. And then the last category, kind of I bury the lead a bit in the book and wait till the end to really get into the woo-woo stuff with the subconscious sides.
Yeah.
And that's where I believe that kind of the energy medicine, the vibrations of the universe that we can tap into, and the connected with everything mind where you get there. So that's the woo-woo stuff.
That's what I like about ION, though, is Noetic Sciences, is that you guys do tackle the woo-woo stuff and you try to clarify it as best you can. Sometimes, we've had a number of scientists from ION on the program, Noetic Sciences, who go out of their way to try to explain things, but it's not always explainable. Sometimes it's like, wow, that's heavy. Would you say that you wrote this book because you want people to understand hidden messages, or the other levels of conscious activity that make us who we are?
Yes. And to give folks tools to chill down a bit, to give folks tools to manage their own vibes so that we can maybe get along a little better and be a little happier.
Yeah, that's very cool. Let's get into this. You talk about when you meet somebody that there are somatic influencers, there are implicit basic biases and things like that.
Yeah.
Biases are influences on us, and this could be how we were raised socially. There could be other influential factors. You could be in a group that has a certain mindset, and these are what I consider the biases. But let's talk a little bit about the what you call somatic influencers and how they can color the vibe.
Mm-hmm. So one of the most surprising um, examples of this that I found when I was doing the research for the book were these chemicals that our body picks up, and they have a somatic influence on us. We don't know, we don't reckon, we can't smell anything. The craziest example is chemicals in women's tears. So the researchers were looking at the effect on men when they are inhaling the chemicals coming from women's tears. Now you can't smell it at all. There's nothing you can smell. And I think that they were looking for the idea that if they're crying, then the chemical might induce in the men change in their emotion as well. But they did not find that. What they found that is it reduced their libido. So they found women less attractive and their sexual desire was decreased. And they even measured that at the level of testosterone decrease. This is a very well controlled study. They basically put a little cotton swab under the nose that's got either controlled substance or the tears. Men have no idea, they can't smell anything, but their reactions are changed. So that's what I'm talking about, somatic influences that you're not aware of, but they totally give you this vibe, like, totally not into this. And can just bubble up that way. So that was the most surprising thing I
I
found.
mean, I had to say, when I was reading about smells, which is
Yeah.
part of this women's tears, I was like, you got to be kidding me. But it does make sense. We are uh, our sense smell around us, like certain perfumes
Mm.
have certain substances in them that make us horny, or they can make us feel better, more uplifted. I think that I'm native California. I don't like necessarily the chemical perfumes, but I do like the more organic perfumes. Occasionally, my girlfriend will wear them. I'm like, oh, great. But it's funny because these women's tears that you talk about, and what you just said to me is as odd that it would shut your libido off and make you feel differently rather than aroused.
Mhm.
It's almost like it's a woman's defense mechanism.
Yeah, you could imagine evolutionarily that it would be a defense mechanism to kind of decrease kind of that interest from the other sex.
um,
You like patchouli? Let me just ask us. I remember coming up from college.
Patchouli, thank you. Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, so do I. Though when I came up from college, when my mother was like, "You just wear that to piss us off."
that's
So
funny.
not everybody likes it.
But there are certain perfumes and scents like patchouli that, when mixed with your own chemistry, create unique smells.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think patchouli is one of those that really reacts to the individual's body chemistry and creates this smell, and so you're reacting differently for different
Yeah,
people.
I think so. I think so too. Yeah. I still like it.
Talk about the uh we mentioned the EMF, electromagnetic frequency, and then I want to get into heart math. This
Yeah.
is something that you bring up, and I find this quite interesting. If somebody has a certain vibration energetically, uh and we're not too shut down, we can pick up on that and get a sense of a person. Talk a bit about
Yeah.
that.
Some of the most fascinating work. And yes, you mentioned HeartMath, the HeartMath Institute here in California. So they described, measured and described an electromagnetic field around the human body that generally so electromagnetic fields are created by all kinds of parts of our body, muscles, brain, but the heart generates the largest one. And it can be visualized as kind of this inflated donut shape around our body, stands out about 3 or 4 feet. So that's just something that we have. What was fascinating is that the researchers at HeartMath Institute could detect differences in the kind of the way the EMF, the patterns of it would change with emotion. So they had folks like focus on anger or focus on gratitude, and they could see a change, a physical change in this field. So you're walking around, and what I like about this is a very non-esoteric description of vibes for real. And the idea you walk in, you get a feeling from somebody, could literally be this physical energy donut around them. And even more compelling is they showed that that could be transferred. So if your invisible donut EMF field overlaps with another person's field, that energy can be transferred. So you could pick, say they're bad vibes, you could be picking up bad vibes, you could be taking them on. You could be a little bit infected by these bad vibes. So yeah, that really opened my eyes. I didn't know that when I started the book.
Yeah, heart math is an amazing technique, and it's still going strong. I don't know a heck of a lot about it. I did know that one of the founders here in the Bay Area, I can't think of his name, but it's a fascinating technique. We're natural. I mean, we're biological beings. We have these sensories, and would you say that this is just who we are? This vibe. I mean, we're talking about the heart. Would you say that the heart is the main vibe sender and receiver? If we were to talk about organs as the
Mhm.
tools, as the registers of these vibrations, what would you say is the dominant organ, or is it the whole system that is constantly sending and receiving vibrations?
I would lean toward that latter idea that it's the whole system. Now, of course, if you just talk about electromagnetic fields, then absolutely the heart is the largest generator of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the whole concept of vibes, even if you just move to these superconscious vibes, that electromagnetic fields cannot explain that at all. So I think it's the whole system, whatever all of that is, whatever where our consciousness comes from, I think is you got to look at the whole system. And of course, the fact that we're interconnected with everything and everybody around us. So we're kind of all swimming in vibes. I mean, our entire reality, everything physical is vibrating. It's an illusion that, the desk is solid. It's basically molecules vibrating there. So, again, that's why it's important to kind of hone in on the exact kind of what aspect you would be talking about. So anyway, short answer is yeah, the whole system, all of us.
It's funny because you talk about electromagnetic frequencies, and this is something that fascinates me a great deal. And as a energy generator, a physical, where each of us are these generators. This is an interesting function of being a human being, and you actually get into breathing techniques that can enhance your vibrational field, as well as using meditative techniques like Om and things like that, which I thought was interesting. But if we don't use the breathing technique and I'm just going to use Eastern philosophy towards consciousness and raising energy, it just naturally happens, right? We can't shut this off. This is a natural function of our physicality, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we're naturally doing that. So we can be unaware of it and just kind of bumble around, which is kind of how most everybody is, and including me most of the time. And once in a while, if I think about it, you can manage it a bit to be a little bit more effective humans. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of kind of the goal.
Would you say, and I think you write this quite succinctly in the book, but would you suggest that when we are using our vibes, it is both a positive and a defense mechanism, or you could say a safety net into with people that we're interacting with?
Yeah, yeah. I think that we do pick up information and at a subconscious level integrate that and use that to decide how we're going to interact with those folks or navigate the world and, as well as spaces.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's information that's accessible, whether or not we, dismiss it or tune into it or discern. You know, for example, I talk in the book about haunted houses or and sometimes this feeling. So there's sometimes you can get a vibe that bubbles up from the subconscious, and then your conscious mind has, constructs an idea about it, particularly because of the way it feels. It can be you can be wrong about it. So I talk in the book about some research where if there's the effects of carbon monoxide poisoning can manifest as a feeling of dread, even you know a fear that's people get the idea that their house is haunted, that they're being suffocated in their sleep, like literally feeling that way, completely scared, and it's due to low level carbon monoxide poisoning. So
Hmm.
I just bring this up as an example of paying attention to your vibes and discerning where they're coming from. So in this case, these vibes could literally be saving your life. Your body is like, you ought to be scared. Pay attention. There's something wrong in your environment. But not, again, not necessarily just jump to the esoteric conclusion.
Exactly. Um, let's look back in our evolution as a species when we didn't have cell phone towers, when we didn't have uh, radio frequencies and a whole bunch of other, EMFs in the atmosphere, and it was just us and nature. Would you say that these vibes were much more acute and highly focused?
Yeah, well, I think that one huge change recently is kind of our disconnection from the earth, kind of our insulation from the vibes, the energy vibes of the earth and nature around us. So, for almost all of our evolution, we were really immersed in nature, touching the ground, seeing and smelling and hearing and being immersed in nature. And just this very recent period where many of us are quite isolated and literally insulated from the energy of the ground and the earth and nature around us. So I think that this shift is stressful for our body, our system. This is something that I believe contributes to ill health and there's plenty of research showing that adding that back, for example, nature walking, which seems, pretty simplistic, can have measurable effects on improving health, the level of the immune system, and others. So I think that that's one shift, as well as our ability to tune in and pay attention to it. I think has shifted, as you mentioned, the cell phones, kind of where our mind is focused, where we spend our energy, and the information we use to influence our behaviors. I think that we've been blocking them out. More recently now, we block them out. So I think that I guess when you say more focused, I would say yes, kind of our focus, our attention of navigating the world was more focused on vibes, vibes in nature, as opposed to now. And I think it poses some challenges for us.
Can you speculate onto how finely tuned our vibe sensory and distribution may have been in an earlier period without the unseen tech?
Mhm.
Could you say that we were highly sensitive in terms of psychic abilities, precognition, and I want to get into the actual vibes, which would be if we have pure, senses, can we get a sense when there's going to be migrating animals? I'm just kind of sensing. I want to get a sense of what you think these tools are that we take for granted. This
Mhm.
this biological nature that are sensory receptions and distribution. That's the lack of a better word for it. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that I don't know that our ability to sense these things has changed. As However, I think that the focus of our mind has changed dramatically when you talk about this long stretch of evolution. And I think that the reason I think that is because the techniques that are effective at tuning into vibes almost always have as a central feature the quieting of the mind chatter, the quieting of the internal dialogue, the bringing the awareness to the present moment, as opposed to the natural state of modern humans of constant mind chattering, thinking about future, thinking about past, and planning, and really not being in the present moment. So I think that's the key difference in terms of what we're facing now. I think, and that's why the techniques to quiet the mind are effective. And then I think underneath of it, we're just pretty much the same biological creature that we've been. That changes pretty slowly compared to what's going on up in our mind.
fascinating. You have a section in your book which is vibes about places, which I found was interesting. Talk a little bit about that. And this is where I'm really curious about your definition of having a recognition of a place. Because I've been to places in Mexico and I thought this feels so familiar
Mhm.
and like I've been here before. But talk about vibes and places.
Well, the kind of one of the most common things that come up when people say walk into a place and you get a vibe is the idea of residual energy, residual vibes left over from something happened in that place before. I looked into the research on that. And it's really, really difficult to test for that. One of the first things that was done is look just across cultures in terms of just people's beliefs, and it was shown that this is something that's really commonly felt, and it affects people's behavior. So simple experiment is, you have folks that come and they're going to fill out some questionnaires that are just a ruse. It's not even about those questionnaires. You just say, okay, go over there in one of those rooms to take it. And if there's there's a sign out front that indicates that previously in that room there've been people talking about sad stuff, versus another room that has a sign that gives the impression that people were in there doing happy stuff. People will go in the happy room. because they believed that those vibes would be left there. Now, I didn't find any compelling evidence that proves that there really were vibes in there. I was looking for it. I really wanted
Okay.
to find it. What we found is that people believe it, but I have done some experiments that kind of indirectly do provide evidence for that. And this is once now we'd have to jump into the superconscious vibe stuff because
Yeah.
experiments I've done with energy medicine practitioners. In this case, it was practitioners of a Japanese healing art called Johrei. And Johrei, it's very, I mean, people generally know about Qigong. Chinese Qigong is a healing modality. Johrei is in a sense, a Japanese version of that. And I had been doing experiments with healers, trying to do in vitro experiments. So having brain cells or brain cancer cells in petri dishes and asking the healers to try to influence the cells in petri dishes with their healing energy. And after I had failed to get positive results or failed to replicate results that had been published, the idea was presented to me by Bill Tiller at Stanford University about conditioning the space. That he said that my lab had bad vibes in it because I was at UCSF. I was studying brain cancer, so it was radiation and chemotherapy.
It's pretty sad and negative, and
Yeah,
it's
pretty negative, pretty
pretty,
brutal environment.
yeah.
And he was saying, the subtle energy vibes are being, just washed out. You can't do these experiments there. You've got to do it in a place where the vibes are conditioned, where the local physics is literally changed, when
Mhm.
there's residual good energy in there, good vibes. So we did end up setting up an experiment at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, where there was basically a big Faraday cage for people, a huge room built with steel walls, and it was completely virgin to healing energy. So it was a blank slate. And so I decided I would do these cell culture experiments 3 days in a row. The first day, while it had never been any healing vibes in there. And then these Johrei healers would come in and they'd spend hours chanting and healing and vibing it up as much as they could.
Yeah.
And the idea that over time they would condition the space so that the petri dishes would start responding to the healing. Short version of the story is that it worked. By the third day, that's when I got to see the cells responding. Dean Radin, who's one of the other scientists at Noetics, which I know has been on your show, Cliff,
Yeah.
he secretly didn't tell me, but he set these random number generators to witness the whole thing as well, inside the box, we call it, and also feeling like, if the vibes built up the point where the cells would respond, that he would be able to register that in these random number generators. And the way he predicted is that the randomness would decrease because of the coherence in the field. Also, the change in the local physics. And so he also saw that happen. So anyway, we published that. It's the first time a biological and a mechanical target
I mean,
would
what's
have
the takeaway on that, Garrett? I mean, is the takeaway that our healing environments need to be as positive and as charged with good vibes as possible for healing? Or I mean, that could say some negative things about hospitals, like in other words, get the hell out of there once you've had your procedure. It's funny because my grandfather, who was an internist down in Southern California, used to say, "Don't go to a hospital unless you're dying," which is kind of the end result. But he left a huge impression on me. But I'm curious about the what your takeaway would be on something like that.
Yeah, well, I think there's two takeaways that one you mentioned I think is valid in terms of paying attention to the spaces where you want to do healing. So, this isn't lost on hospitals, at least out here in California, where there is effort to create good vibes there. Kind of counteract, although some scary stuff happens there. You can mitigate that in certain ways to create good vibes in the space. So I think that's important. And I also think that the takeaway, it does come back to that belief about energy left in a space. because we, this is basically some direct evidence that supports that in a way, indirectly, that, looked like there was some space, had some change. Now, of course, that's for, these Johrei healers that have spent their lives, building up this ability. That's not kind of the everyday
Yeah, forget
hope. But that extreme case, I think, is relevant to just our everyday life, where, yeah, the feelings of a place, you could say, yeah, there's a little evidence kind of suggesting that, and lots of people believe it. But it would be fun to see more research on that to directly test it.
We don't want to get too hard and depressed about the hospital visits, but without getting too detailed, isn't it kind of a challenge to work with the allopaths of the world, simply because their healing models are so brutal and they don't incorporate subtle work? Any traditionals, be it Eastern philosophy of meditation, yoga, body work, it's all pretty blunt.
Yeah.
And how do we work with that?
Yeah. I think that, part of the problem is the allopathic medicine really does think of the system. It doesn't think about the human as this energetic system. So basically just rules all that out, thinks of this as a machine. I think that the way we do that is to shift the paradigm with them. Some movement in that direction is now osteopathic doctors who have the same mechanical training and go through the same residency programs, but incorporate the idea of the energetic body, the interconnectedness. They're now commingling, and I think that's a positive movement toward medicine as a whole. I think that it can evolve to be more comprehensive and more understanding of the complexity that we humans are.
But don't you think it's going to have to be and I always say this on my show, some MIT scientist is going to have to build some kind of scanning device that really reveals the chakras or actual living bodies within the system, and that there's an auric field, and then the heart projects. We're just talking about HeartMath and how
Yeah,
this energy projects around the body. That seems to me like the only way that they're going to really accept the fact that we are energy devices, or biological energy producing devices that are interacting with our environment and with nature and with each other in a way that can be positive and negative.
yeah,
And then I read a long time ago that the belief is that disease is caused by these energetic problem areas that are not relieved of their strain, of their vibrational patterns. And when you can relieve it, this is where healing comes. I mean, I don't know what you can say about that, but I mean, this is so far out of the realms of allopathy that just
yeah.
talking about it is like, I could see the professors that teach these young doctors rolling their eyes. But whatever.
Yeah, well, they've that prediction about finding a machine to measure it. Yeah, that would certainly, that would be a game changer for them. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know. I have hope that just, the patients are going to want to go to osteopathic doctors more, and they're going to start to realize they're going to lose business. Maybe that'll push them from the other side.
Yeah.
There, I talk a little bit in the book about, you mentioned about the energy flow or blockage kind of be at the root of some diseases. And I do touch upon a little bit of an overlap in terms of how modern Western allopathic medicine could be open to the possibility in a way, because of these qigong exercises where you're feeling the energy flow through your body. And I have a practice in there that's a daily thing, a daily practice, just to kind of maintain your health and notice if you have any blockages and try to get them to flow. And I think that absent some new detection, new inventions of detection, the body itself is a detector of that. And I think that one area that could be looked at is in the area of a microcirculation. So microcirculation is the tiny littlest vessels in all of your tissues where the blood cells go.
Hmm.
And it's very well established within medical literature that if the microcirculation is decreased, that leads to tissue damage and disease, all kinds of diseases. And I it hasn't been demonstrated. I know that it happens, and I have a technique in the book where you can see it happen. When you use your mind to do the chi movement, you can influence the microcirculation in your body.
Hmm.
So just that very fact is very simple. Again, not esoteric. It's just like whatever does it, we know that through intention, we can change microcirculation in our body. That's A to B. We know microcirculation increases health, decrease, basically the link between microcirculation and disease is very well established. With Qigong, you can establish intention, the consciousness with microcirculation. So there's kind of that A to B, B to C logic that I think, that could have some impact on changing their minds.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, clinical studies, obviously, devices that can penetrate the body and see the energy levels would be a huge innovation. It's just amazing. Let's talk about a chapter. I think it's chapter 3: psychic connections with loved ones in distress.
Hmm.
And I see this with examples of young children and their mothers. The mother just instinctively knowing that their child's in distress or having a problem. But talk a little bit about this important energetic vibe characteristic that we seem to inhabit.
Yeah. I think that many people have experienced this. I talk about a really great example of it in the book. A woman wrote a book about it who was in the West Coast. Her mother was in England and was dying, and she had an extreme case of that where she actually not just got a vibe or a feeling, but the vibe kind of manifested into the same kind of bodily reactions that her mother was going through at the moments before her death. Inspired her to call her mother and get to say, love her before she died. So that's an extreme case. But the parent-child, the feeling that something's wrong, I've had that in my life. So, I don't think there's any question that folks have this. Question is, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my best guess, of course, I'm not an expert on this at all, but I do put forth my best guess in the book, and it is about the level at which we are interconnected. So, again, this is the superconscious mind where we all are connected that we normally don't have any access to. But I think that in this case, because of the really important connection and the protective instinct kind of as a high level, parents very focused on being protective of their offspring, and then the offspring being kind of in a danger situation. It kind of amplifies normally these signals, this information are below even our subconscious mind, perhaps. But whenever there's a particular interest in protecting, and then there's also on the other end, is it kind of that fear, that's all the energy of fear, that it kind of bubbles it up a little bit higher. And so there is that access to the information. And again, it comes through as a vibe, not as a clear sentence or description in this case, but like, oh, this feeling that something's wrong and wanting to reach out. So yeah, I think that happens through our interconnectedness. That's always there, but only on particular occasions, for special reasons, it kind of peaks up into our awareness.
Right. Talk a little bit about, and you give some good examples and some technique for enhancing your vibes. Would you say that it is to have acute vibes is a critical, not only survival technique, but in business and in everyday situations. If you're going into a meeting, you've never met someone before, and if you can scan them, which we automatically do, I think when we're with people, we don't purposefully go, "Hey, who is this person?" And then I'm going to scan them. It's just it all happens.
Yeah.
Talk about that and talk about when we're aware of our vibes, these natural instinctual abilities that we have to scan somebody, and why these are an important attributes of being physical.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so complex, that that information, that scanning that we do, and some of it, again, it's subconscious coming to us. This the part of it that's bubbling up to my mind right now is the research that was done on smells. The people that smell alike are better, tend to be, end up being better friends. And it was this is really fun research they did to this controls to make sure that it wasn't that people became friends and then they both decided to go on, a vegan diet, and then they started smelling alike. They kind of did all the controls so that it was something that comes up first and is causative. Gosh, there's so much about it. Even these unconscious signals from the environment you talk about in business. Another experiment I really liked is that if you have people walk into a room and there's a backpack sitting on the side, versus they walk in the room and there's a briefcase sitting on the counter. Now this was done back, a while back, whenever briefcases were something that was, synonymous with business. But it literally changed the way the people interacted in these tasks. They became more competitive if there was a briefcase sitting next to them. Of course, this is not something that they consciously registered, but it's affecting them. It's giving them, creating the, changing the way they're interacting. I think that, you want to try to be, you want to try to have a clean signal coming in to understand the vibes of the folks you're interacting with. So in terms of preparation, you want to, you first get your own vibes on an even keel. You want to chill down a bit so that you can be really receptive and open, and yeah, be perceptive rather than kind of going in there with what you've got something in your mind already. And then, just knowing that some of it's going to be smells you don't even know about it. Some of it's going to be the way that they're projecting, that their conscious vibe they're putting. And you got also be aware that the conscious vibes can be manipulated. They can be deceptive. Right? A person can come in there with intentions that are evil, and so then they put on a smiley face. So if you're able to tune in to feel the vibes that are below that, of course you're going to have advantage.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can say that can help for that is to chill your own vibes down first, so that then you'll be able to be a more discerning vibe perceiver.
The book's called Why Vibes Matter: Understand Your Energy and Learn How to Use It Wisely. And my guest today has been Dr. Garrett Yount. Garrett, we just talked about nature and how vital it is to be in nature as much as possible. Why do we and how do we use nature to recharge and reset our sensitivities?
Yeah. I think that at least on two levels. I think that on vibrational level, with at the energy level, we literally balance our energies in our body, by being in nature, by interacting with nature on a quite physical level. And then I think on another level, just the beauty and wonder of nature, and comprehending on an inner knowing way our interconnectedness with nature and reality, and understanding that we're not actually just little meat machines running around that are disconnected from everything. I think that can profoundly increase our well-being, and again make us more effective humans.
Uh, As a vibe advisor, Garrett, would you say that when we go into nature, say like I try to get out every second or third day. I'm close to a park where I can hike for an hour just to get out and shut my brain off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'll bring my phone with me, which is a mistake. Not always. But what should we have an intention when we go into nature to clear the day and receive nature? Talk about that, because I think it's a critical point that's not discussed enough, which is, yeah, great to walk in nature. You're going to get healing even if you're not aware of it, but doesn't isn't there tools we can use to enhance that nature walk that we do that really is a powerful healing?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're exactly right. I think that the intention can make the efficacy much greater. So as you say, if you're still got your monkey mind going on, you're walking around, you're on your phone and you're thinking about future and past, you're gonna still seep in and get some good vibes from nature. But if you set the intention to set aside the past and the future for a moment, that's going to be there. It's going to be available when you come back. But just say, when take some time to be here now with nature, connect and recharge. Just that, just having that intention, I think, really, really increases the impact. And it's just important to note, don't beat yourself up if then half a minute into it you start thinking about, oh my gosh, am I going to do this and what about that? It's important to not judge yourself for that, because everybody does it. It's always, I mean, not maybe there are some adepts that I haven't met, but it's going to happen. So when it happens, just say, oh, there it is, I see you.
I know, because you go, you turn off work and you're have an active life and you have family and anything like that, and you go out in nature and you kind of want to leave that alone and let that sit back in the car. But you're right. You have, if you're very active and very working on projects that are very energetically intense, that can come and fill your mind quite quickly, can
Yeah, keeps popping back in there. So, but it is really important not to beat yourself up about it, because then it just makes it worse, right? You just kind of
Yeah,
notice it and then say, okay, and then breathe out and get back to the nature zone.
yeah. Um, as we conclude, Garrett, talk about the Om meditation, how simple it is, perhaps the benefits, because I didn't. I mean, you give us a kind of an overview, but simple meditations can really do a lot. So
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that meditation. For those who are listening who don't meditate, this is a great primer to meditation.
yeah. This is one of the most common types of meditation is chanting the word Om. And it kind of has a double effectiveness, because slowing your breathing is just one basic technique that is really, really good for chilling down your vibes. And it, can talk about it scientifically in terms of balancing the autonomic nervous system and all that. But suffice it to say, the science is in slowing your breath is really, really, really good for you. And so chanting kind of combines, you automatically are slowing your breath, but it combines it with this intention of centering and quieting the mind. And you know, there are some esoteric roots to the idea that this is, a sound. It's kind of one of the primal sounds of the universe, which, you don't have to think about necessarily. But the idea is, it's a very simple chanting with, you just follow your breath, and you just chant the word Om. And as you can feel it, it literally vibrates. You can
Yeah.
feel it vibrating your body, and you just tune into that vibration. Everybody's experience is different of it. For me, I can feel that vibration, and I can feel it connecting me with the vibrations in my environment, and you just feel like you're dissolving into the universe. It's a very cool
So
feeling.
that sounds like something that's more private. You don't you're actually saying Om to create the vibration. You're not thinking it. which I mean, I meditate and I use a mantra that has a similar sound that I use to drop down into very deep states. But what you're suggesting is go to a place where you can maybe say it quietly
Mhm.
and maybe close your eyes and feel the vibe.
Yeah, I think vocalizing it is very powerful.
Garrett, it's been a pleasure. For those of you listening, Why Vibes Matter just came out. It's on available on Amazon, um, and I imagine pretty much anywhere that you can get books.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what you're up to. Are you going to be speaking anywhere? Are you what's going on? Give us your website if you have one.
Yeah, the website is noetic.org. So noetic.org. And yeah, you can see the experiments that the whole team is up to on there. Right now, I'm setting up a telepathy experiment funded by the Be All Foundation. So we're going to bring folks into the lab and try to get evidence of telepathic communication, but not through the brain, through the enteric nervous system. So the gut brain. We're going to see if the gut can pick
Wow.
up telepathic signals, which is going to be a lot of fun. So need to get working on that today.
Okay. Uh, so your web page is on the Noetic Science page.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Um, on that subject of telepathy, do you guys cross over into the UAP kind of who are these guys flying in these vehicles that are being identified from as potentially off-world types? Because there's a lot of language and a lot of thought that these guys are actually communicating with people telepathically.
Mm-hmm,
You ever
mm-hmm.
follow any of that, or is that just too far out of the
We are doing an experiment with an individual, just a brain. We're measuring brain waves of an individual who has a ability, apparently, to see into another dimension, and information comes through there, including apparently extraterrestrial communicating to this individual. So yeah, we dip into that.
So his vibe is very tuned up, and maybe
Yeah,
he has a certain gift or a part of the brain that's been opened up to allow him conscious communication with something.
yeah, potentially. So that's why we're kind of going to take a peek at the brain waves.
I love noetic sciences. Like you guys are great, fantastic.
Thanks.
Hey Garrett, much success on Why Vibes Matter. Again, I love the cover of this book, and thanks for joining me. It was fun.
Oh, I enjoyed it too. Thank you, Cliff.